Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this April First Friday webinar. We're excited to have Jacqueline here to present on Ramadan and breaking the fast. Just a reminder, we have the question section open, so if you have questions, I'll be monitoring that, and you can throw those in there, and I'll ask them to Jacqueline at any point, or if you want to save them till the end, that is just fine as well. And at the end, we'll have a survey, just like we usually do, and I'll put that up on the chat and in the comments section, so you can take that if you are willing to. But at this time, I'm going to give it to Jacqueline, and she's going to take it from here.
Hi all, my name is Jacqueline Chambers. I'm the Coordinator for Diversity Initiatives and Programs at Oregon State University. And this morning we're going to be talking about breaking the fast, supporting students during the holy month of Ramadan. As Andrew said, please feel free to ask questions at any time throughout the presentation, and I will be happy to answer them as they come in. So get started. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about what Ramadan is. So we'll start with an overview of Ramadan, which is provided by OSU's Etihad Cultural Center. Then we're going to overview how we established OSU's Ramadan dining program, including how we found campus partners and how we got buy-in to actually create the program, as well as talking about menu planning, the challenges that we faced throughout the planning and implementation process, and then time for questions and answers at the end. But if you have any questions on any specific slides, please feel free to comment, and Andrew will let me know about them. So just to get started, this is the third year that OSU will be doing a Ramadan dining program in our dining centers. And this year, Ramadan, which is an Islamic holy month, will begin Tuesday, May 15th and end Thursday, June 14th. So Ramadan is a time to purify and train the body and soul, and it's a month on the Islamic calendar. And one of the things that is important to note is that the Islamic calendar is a lunar calendar. So Tuesday, May 15th is the earliest that the new crescent moon can be sighted. So Ramadan, the month actually doesn't start until the crescent moon has been sighted. So it may start on May 15th or it may start on May 16th, just depending on when the moon is sighted. And it starts, and the month starts in the evening. So the first day of fasting would actually be either May 16th or May 17th, depending on the sighting of the moon. As I said, Ramadan is an Islamic month, a month of the Islamic calendar. This is the entire Islamic calendar, and as you may or may not know, Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic year. And that's because the calendar actually goes right to left, top to bottom. So our 9th month is Ramadan. So what is Ramadan? Fasting means abstinence, and it is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It is an obligatory month of fasting for adult Muslims from a time from dawn to dusk every day. During this time, the Quran was revealed, and Muslims believe that fasting and performing night prayers with sincere faith is a means to having one's sins forgiven. Muslims also believe that the gates of heaven are opened and the gates of hell are closed, and the devil is chained up during Ramadan. So it is a very important and very holy month to kind of cleanse yourself spiritually, as well as get closer to God and live your holiest life. So what does it mean to fast? Muslims will fast during the month of Ramadan from dawn to sunset every day. So that means no food, no water, no sexual relations or smoking during daylight hours. Those are all not allowed. And when I say from dawn to sunset, during late spring, early summer, dawn comes between 4 and 5 a.m. most days. That's when the sun has just peaked over the horizon, and then sunset isn't until between 8:30 and 9:30 every night. So it's a very long day of fasting for Muslims. During this month, one is also expected to do their best to practice self-control and discipline, control their anger, refrain from harsh language or insults, and to tolerate, forgive, and respect others. So fasting is not just about what you're putting into your body, but it's also about how you're expressing yourself. So trying to let go of any anger, or keep your language pure and forgiving as well. So as I mentioned, it's a very long, the days are very long during Ramadan at this time of the year. And so a typical day during Ramadan starts with suhoor. That is the meal that is eaten in the morning before the fast begins. And during that time, Muslims will eat, pray the Fajr, maybe they'll read the Quran, and then they'll probably return to sleep. Since they're doing this at about 4 in the morning, they want to eat a big meal that will sustain them throughout the day, before they have to fast for up to 19 hours. So that's why returning to sleep usually happens, because most Americans don't start their day until 8 or 9 o'clock when they're at work. So getting a couple hours of sleep before going back to work is very helpful. Fasting so after suhoor and that time of day, then folks will fast throughout the whole day. So no food or water or tobacco products, things like that. Then at sunset will be Iftar. And Iftar is a time when Muslims will break their fast with a variety of things. It could be water, dates. Some will have a yogurt drink. Some will break their fast with coffee or tea. But that is as soon as the sun has started to set, their fast is broken. And then it's usually breaking the fast with water and dates, a quick prayer, and then eating a meal to since they're hungry, eating a big meal to replenish what they didn't have all day. Last part of the day is Tarawih, which is a time to pray and recite the Quran by themselves or at home, or pray in congregation, which is the preferred method. And this is a later night prayer, so this could be happening at 11 p.m. or later. So some Muslims do kind of flip their days, where if they're able to, and I've seen this with a lot of our students, if they're able to, they'll sleep throughout the day when they're fasting, and then stay up most of the night praying and eating. So OSU's Ramadan program. First off, why was this important? So we started our program 3 years ago. I apologize. We started it in 2016. And it was important to us because that was the first year in about 5 years that any part of the month of Ramadan had fallen during the academic calendar. And OSU has about 4,000 international students on campus. And we do have quite a few Muslim students, both international Muslim students as well as domestic Muslim students. And so it was important that we showed that we supported our students and that we were that they were important to our community. So by supporting these students, they could be better at both observing the month and also be more successful in their classes. So where the students were impacted for housing and dining, it was really easy to see where they'd be impacted. They'd be impacted in our residence halls because of those early morning and late night prayers. If you are a Muslim student who is not or who is living with a non-Muslim student, praying in your room at night might be difficult because your roommate might be sleeping or studying. Also, that impact, but it also you might not want to pray in front of your roommate who isn't a practicing Muslim. So we had to think about how that would impact our students who wanted to pray at home. Our students were impacted in our dining centers because the first year that we had Ramadan on campus, the dining centers closed at 8 p.m. and sunset wasn't until almost 9 p.m. And so we didn't have any dining centers open at the time for them to be able to get food. And then finally, academically, the first week of Ramadan has been described to me as being one of the hardest weeks because their bodies are adjusting to fasting, and so they're not used to going for hours and hours without food and drink. And so when the first week of Ramadan also fell during finals week, that put additional strain on students' final week schedules. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but I am not Muslim, so this is something that I have done by partnering with colleagues who are Muslim and getting a lot of information from them about it. So so when I realized that this was something that we needed to address, I reached out to our campus partners who should be involved, which included our International Student Advising Services, the Into OSU English Language Learning Program, as well as our Etihad Cultural Center. Those were three big groups that really helped us figure out what the need was and how we could address those needs. So during those first 2 years, we had a variety of ways that we assisted our students. So as you can see on the right side of the screen, these are actually all of our advertisements and posters throughout that we used the last couple of years. So I'm going to back up just for a second. In all of our residence halls, we held space in one of the lounges in each hall for students to pray in that lounge during those morning Suhoor prayer hours. That way students, as you can see, prayer time was between 3 and 5 a.m. So that way students didn't have to bother their roommates or feel like they were bothering their roommates if they wanted to pray and not have to walk across campus or try going to the mosque, which is about 2 miles off campus. They were able to just head down to the lounge, and that space was kept for them during that time so that they could pray either by themselves or in community or read the Quran or whatever they wanted to do during that time. We also began serving Ramadan meals in our from our Southside station at Arnold Dining Center, and that was a time. During that time, we reopened the dining center. So dining center closed at 8, and we reopened it at 9 o'clock for students to come in, break their fast. We had set aside the conference rooms in the dining center for students to use for prayer space if they wanted to pray between breaking their fast and actually eating. And then the students were then able to sit in community and eat an entirely halal meal. And we reached out to academic affairs to make sure that our Dean of Student Life office was able to support just letting the instructors on campus know that we had students who were observing Ramadan who might need additional support during finals week. So we created an entirely halal meal for our Ramadan dining program, but it wasn't something that was just 10 minutes and we had this whole program figured out. It took a lot of support from a couple different campus partners. First off, our colleagues across campus who work directly with our international students as well as our Muslim students. So our Muslim Student Association, we invited both students from that as well as their advisor. As I said, the Etihad Cultural Center, both the director of the center as well as student representation. Into OSU has an Arabic language and culture advisor, so we invited them to come and share their opinions, as well as the International Student Advising Services sent an advisor. And luckily for us, we had the advisors and professional staff, many of them were Muslims, so they were able to kind of give us their opinion on things, as well as give us context for why things needed to be done certain ways. And so it was, for finding our campus partners, a lot of it was based on previous relationships that I had with international programs and things like that. But they also were able to, if they weren't, the people that I first reached out to, if they weren't able to help, they were able to point me in the right direction. So just reaching out to a couple of offices that you think might be able to help. And if they're not, maybe they can point you in the direction of someone who actually is able to help. The other part of our dining program that was hard, that was a little bit difficult, was getting buy-in from our staff. And one of the reasons for that is that we were asking the dining center to remain open 3 additional hours every night for a month. And that's a lot of extra work for one staff to do. And so being able to get our staff to understand why it was important, and really we addressed it as a dietary, being able to support students and meeting their dietary needs because they weren't able to eat during regular dining hours. We needed to have more dining hours. And our staff was hesitant at first, but they've been pretty great about figuring out work schedules, and some of them working overtime so that we are able to have this meal program available every year. So menu planning, first we went through all of our current items, and we have a pretty good halal menu as is on campus. In order to support these students, we've worked on having a halal dining program a little bit in the past, and so we have a decent halal program. And so what we did is we just started looking at what our halal foods were and how we could make a menu out of an entire meal out of those every night. So these are actually our tags from our halal of one night of our dining program. Most nights we had some tomato and cucumber salad. We would always have some sort of vegetable. So this night it was butternut squash and sage. 1 to 2 meat options. So we have a lamb stew that night as well as a chicken stew. Basmati rice, a grilled flatbread, lentils, and then we also always had a yogurt drink. And the yogurt drink was something that our dining staff made in-house. So we had 4 different flavors. Cardamom was probably the most popular, but we also had a banana date, a mint, and what was the last one? I forget what the last one was, but we'll find out on the next menu. So some of the things that we had to do is we really had to think about sourcing halal food. Where are we going to get our meat from? During Ramadan, prices of halal meat can go up a lot. So while we have a halal meat supplier, we also worked with them to make sure that we got our meat ordered early enough that we wouldn't see any prices, like we wouldn't see the astronomical price changes that sometimes happen during Ramadan. We also had to make sure that our supplier knew we needed more halal meat than what we usually order, because we were doing halal meat every single night. And a larger amount. We planned for about 50 students every night for those first 2 years. We also needed to meet dietary needs. So not only do Muslims who maybe don't eat halal during other times of the year choose to eat halal, and so we have more students eating halal during Ramadan, but we also had to meet the needs of students who might be lactose intolerant or might be vegan or vegetarian. And so I actually had a student come up to me after one night at the meal and say, you know, I've just become vegan recently and I wasn't sure how I was going to eat this year. And I really appreciate that you had enough options for me that I was able to eat and keep my vegan diet and still find enough to eat here tonight. We also had a salad bar every night so that students could also have salad. Just if they wanted to just make themselves a lettuce salad or spinach salad. But the other piece was variety. So our first year, since we had only started with the last week of the school year, we had focused more on traditionally Middle Eastern dishes. And the feedback that we got from students was the Middle Eastern food was really great, but we want American food too. So then last year we switched to having pizza, and we had halal pizza on the menu, and we also had halal lamb burgers and things like that. So we had our grill going as well, so that students could have American food, Middle Eastern food. We also added Asian recipes into the menu last year. So this is a copy of our menu from last year. We had a 5-week menu. So the first and third week had the same cycle menu, and then the second and fourth week did. As you can see, we had vegetables, a vegetable option every night, a grain option, a soup option, entrees, and a yogurt drink. And then every day we always offered dates, naan, and cucumber tomato salad. And the dates and the yogurt drink were always complimentary for students to break their fast. So they could come in, have those to eat and drink, and then go pray or whatever they need to do, and then get the food that they were going to purchase for the evening. This was our second and fourth week menu. Just trying to give the students enough options so that they felt like they were both having being fed food that they would eat, as well as not having to eat the exact same thing every night for a month. A zoom in of our week 5, since week 5 was just a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Saturday and Sunday we run kind of our dining center usually just runs the pizza and grill. So we kind of reflected that in the Ramadan menu with having the pizza and grill and then chef's choice. So that was kind of what we had done throughout the month. Of weekends were a little bit different, more focused on pizza, burger, or lamb burgers, things like that. But with the larger things happening and the bigger entrees happening during the week. So the logistics of planning a Ramadan dining program, a couple of things to think about is you need to let your students know that you're doing it. So we did a lot of a variety of advertising throughout the months preceding Ramadan in order for the students to know that this was an option for them. We sent out an email survey at the beginning of the spring term to all of our residents saying, are you interested in coming to this meal program so that we can have the right amount of food available? We sent that out at the beginning of the term, and then again about 2 weeks before the term, we kind of did one follow-up. We advertised it in our campus living, which is a biweekly email that gets sent out to students. We have digital screens in all of our residence halls. So this is actually the sign from our digital screens in the residence halls. And then we also did paper posters throughout the buildings as well, so that students would hopefully see it and use it. This is from our first year. In our first year, we did it was more or less an all-you-can-eat one time through for $10. And so students could get 2 entrees, rice, lentils, salad, soup, flatbread, yogurt, drink, and dates for $10. It was a pretty great deal. It was, and students would walk away with heaping plates, which after fasting for 18 or 19 hours probably felt really good to them. And so that was our first part, was coming up with how we're going to tell students about it. And then we also, as we were advertising, once again, this is mostly for our students living on campus, but as we were advertising to our students living on campus, we also wanted other students to know that they could come in from off campus and have the meal as well. And so we asked that our campus partners send out the advertisements through email to their listserv. So the International Student Listserv of about 4,000 students got the email. The Muslim Student Association listserv of about 2,000 to 3,000 students got the email. Etihad Cultural Center shared it. Plus, we put it into our campus, our general campus email that shares events and things like that. And while $10 sounds like a lot of money for a meal, an all-you-can-eat meal to students, one of the things that isn't on the advertisement but actually happened is that all of our on-campus students get a 25% discount when they go through the dining centers, and so their meals for any on-campus students after the discount was actually $7.50. Other logistics we had to think about was our space use. So we were able to kind of take over the entire dining center because it was being reopened for this program. So Muslims may need to wash before they pray or when they're arriving to the dining center. And so we took our single-use bathroom and we put a chair with fresh clean towels outside of it, so that if students needed to wash prior to eating or praying, they could use that bathroom and have like a real terry cloth towel to be able to dry off with, versus just using paper towels. So we had a foot washing station more or less in the dining center. We also had those prayer spaces in our conference rooms, and the first year we just had one prayer space, and then last year we actually took over both conference rooms in the dining center, and they were both labeled as just prayer space, but we definitely saw that men would use one and women would use the other. So we were able to have prayer spaces for men and for women. We also used a lot of volunteers during this time. So our dining staff was working overtime and helping, but we didn't want this to just be a dining program the first year. We wanted this to be a departmental program. And so what we did is the first 2 years. And so what we did is we actually had volunteers who sat in the dining area of the dining center and just greeted students as they walked in. The first year, because we were only open for this program and this was the only way that people could buy food, we also were telling students that this is a menued program. It's $10. If you'd like to join us, you're more than welcome to, things like that. So the first year was mostly just for our Muslim students. Last year we decided that we switched to it being a la carte pricing up to $10 and then $10 for if they went over or for if they got everything. So it was a little bit more open, but we had the students, or we had the volunteers, like being our resident directors, our director level of UHDS, our operations team, anybody who wanted to volunteer for a night just kind of was there and present and showing support for the community. They could chat with the students as they were in the dining center breaking their fast. It was just a time to show support, and that this was something that the department really supported. So there are always challenges faced when you're starting a new program, especially a religiously affiliated program. And so we had a few over the past couple of years. Some of our internal challenges included that our staff didn't understand why we were doing this. And so this was really just explaining to our dining staff in particular that it was more about meeting the dietary needs of the students, of the fact that we're closed when they want to eat, and we require them to buy a meal plan, and we require them to use, and we're not allowing them to use that meal plan because our hours don't match what culturally or religiously they need to do to eat. And so getting the staff buy-in was a big deal, and just being able to help them understand that it was more of a dietary need program than a religious program. Also, we asked staff to work overtime a lot for a month. And so the other piece to kind of help with that, the dining center staff especially not feeling like this is all on them, was that I was there many nights, the volunteers were there, so we had other staff members there, and the director of dining was really involved, and would either the director or one of the assistant directors of dining was there many nights as well. The other challenge was students, both our Muslim students as well as our non-Muslim students. So our Muslim students, one of the challenges faced from our Muslim students was that they didn't communicate well with us at times. And so last year we had the struggle of the Muslim students didn't share out the program to their listserv. And so the advertising didn't go as well as it could have because we didn't have buy-in from the Muslim Student Association. And that was a bummer because we really we wanted them to be part of it. They were at our meetings, but they decided that they didn't feel like their voice had been heard. And so so this year we're working really hard to make sure that when we partner with them that they feel like their voice is heard and that we're addressing any needs that they are bringing up. For our non-Muslim students, one of the major pushbacks was that we're doing this for Muslim students, but what are we doing for non-Muslim students? What are we doing for Christian holidays like Christmas or Easter? What are we doing for Lent? And we do have programs around those holidays, but we don't advertise them very well. So our dining centers always serve fish on Fridays during Lent, but we don't advertise that as because it's Lent, we're serving fish. We just do it. And so that really changed our advertising for our Christian-based holidays to make sure that our Christian students also were feeling that their religious needs were being met. And so it was things that were already built into our program, just we weren't telling people that that's why we were doing it. We were just doing it. So this year we had because it's Friday and Lent, we're serving this fish out of this concept. And to me, it was a really good reflection of we need to make sure that we're telling students what we're doing to support them sometimes, not just being supportive always, to make sure that they realize that they're also being supported. From outside of the campus community, we had a couple groups that really challenged us as well. Parents were one of them. The email that got sent out inviting students to take the survey and let us know if they wanted to be part of our Ramadan dining program got sent out to all of our student emails, which apparently some parents check. So we got some emails back from the parents about how are you supporting my student as they're part of fasting for Lent, or how are you supporting my student who's going to be here for Easter? Are you going to serve an Easter meal? And once again, it was kind of the same pieces with the students of, we already are doing that, we just haven't told you about it. And so a lot of it was just kind of doing one-on-one conversations with parents about, well, we actually do a lot for Lent and Easter. Here's how we support your student, but thank you for your feedback. The other piece was the community. So we wanted to make sure that, one, the students were going to be safe being in the dining center, eating, and in a program that was directly for Muslim students. And so making sure that the community understood what we're doing, as well as that there weren't going to be any challenges or anything unsafe in the dining center. So we did advertise this both to the campus community and to not as much, but to the Muslim community outside of campus, so that the mosque knew that we were doing a program every night that was for people who may also go to the mosque. And then campus buy-in, having the Dean of Students office share their support, letting academics know that this was something that we needed to do. And one of the things that we faced every year is we start planning this program in January, and campus doesn't really hear about it until May. And so making sure that we have that campus support, but also that campus knows what they need to do to support students. And then our scope. So our first year, we thought we didn't know how many students we were going to get, and we were only planning to do it for the week of finals, which was the first week of Ramadan, because we figured most students would be going home at that time. It turned out that first year we had 50 students the very first night, and we almost ran out of food, and it was great. We were very excited that we were able to support those students. But then the students had asked us to keep it going for the following 3 weeks because they were going to be there. So we actually ended up having about 15 students or so go use the meal program every night of Ramadan that year, even though we had only planned to do it for 1 week. So that was great. But then because we had such a positive first year, last year we planned to have at least 50 to 100 students every night, and we only had about 10 to 20. And so that was really that was a struggle for us, because part of it was the lack of advertising by the Muslim Student Association. Part of it was some conflicting events that happened on campus. And so being able to figure that out was and have the right amount of food prepared so that we didn't waste food every night was a challenge for us. So what we've learned this year is that we're building it into our current program. So during the month of Ramadan this year, the dining center is going to have more halal options on their menu, and they're not going to close. They're going to just stay open until 9:30, 9:45, 10 o'clock for the entire month of Ramadan, because they find that, this is a really important event to them, but they want to make sure that they're able to keep it going and keep it sustainable for them. So as I just said, Ramadan is now becoming a part of dining standard operating procedures. So our Ramadan meal program will always happen, and as it moves through the year, it's going to be happening more in our traditional hours that end at 8 p.m. So at some point, this won't be as big of a challenge, but the challenge will then be to make sure that we have enough halal options for our students to have a balanced meal. We also this year have decided to plan an open Iftar, which is a campus and community event. So this is a program that UHDS has partnered with the Etihad Cultural Center, Muslim Student Association, Office of Institutional Diversity, into OSU, the International Student Advising, and Office of International Student Services to do a campus-wide educational event. Pretty excited for it. We have a plan for about 350 people to come to a meal the first or second night of Ramadan, depending on when it starts. So Thursday, May 17th, we're having this meal where up to 250 students get free tickets to break their fast in community, and about 100 other community members will be able to come, and we're going to learn. It's a time for any observing Muslims to be able to break their fast in community, which is really the preferred way to break your fast during Ramadan, and for campus and community members to learn what Ramadan actually is and why it's important and what they're doing. And so we're very excited for this. It's a pilot year for this program. We're hoping to continue it, and it's kind of based off of the TET project, which is an international program that has a large tent set up in the middle of campus where they hold iftars so that people can pray and break fast in community as well. We're not doing a tent project this year for a couple of reasons. One, tents are very expensive to rent. They're about $5,000 just for base price of setup and rental things. And also all of our outside space was being used at that time of year. So we decided to do it to in the spirit of the tent project, hold an open iftar. And we're going to have 2 Muslim scholars speak on Ramadan, and we're also going to have a panel of students who are going to kind of talk about how they've observed Ramadan at home, as well as what it means to them, and answer questions along with a facilitated dialogue during the meal, so that the hope is that observers can eat the meal with non-observers and have a conversation about what it's all about. So I know we said about an hour, but it looks like we're going to be done a little bit early. Does anybody have any questions about this program? And I didn't put my email up here, but you can also email me at jacqueline.chambers@oregonstate.edu if you have follow-up questions. But does anybody have any questions right now?
We'll give it just a few more, about another 30 seconds here. See if anyone has any questions that pop up in the chat box there. Just underneath the screen, you should be able to see that. Does not look like anything's coming up. So once again, thank you, Jacqueline, for that great presentation. Very informative. And, glad that we can get that information out there for sharing and helping other people. Just for everyone else knows, I did just put the link to the survey or the assessment in the chat, so you can go ahead and take that now. We greatly appreciate that. And once again, thanks for joining, everyone. We'll see you next month on May 4th for Occupancy Management 101 and Why It Should Matter to You. Have a great day.